If you've had pain or injury to your hip flexor or your psoas muscle and you're looking to return to your sport or just build resilience so you don't re-aggravate and re-injure this area in the future, then this video and the advanced exercises that we're going to walk through is for you. Hey, it's Coach E from Precision Movement, and today we are focused on the hip flexors, also known as the iliopsoas. At least that's the primary muscle involved. And there are two heads to the iliopsoas. The iliacus is the head that is bigger. It's kind of like the pec major of the hip. So the iliacus is designed for strength and for power and for speed, whereas the psoas portion of the iliopsoas complex is a little longer, it's more slender, and it's designed more for stability of both the lumbar spine and the pelvis. So there are two sides to the coin here, and the exercises that we're going to show you will work both. And it's important to really pay attention to the cues that I'm going to talk you through when we go through the exercises. And it's also important to note that this video contains advanced exercises. It's not designed for you if you're currently suffering from some pain in the psoas or some tightness. If you are, then check out the video up here, which is a really popular video we have that outlines what you need to do to get your pain from wherever it is right now down to a level that's negligible so that you can do the exercises here, which are designed for athletes to return to sport, to prevent re-injury and re-aggravation. And it's designed, if you're not an athlete, for building resilience. What we're walking through here are 4 exercises that build you up what we call the performance pyramid. The exercises that we normally teach here on the Precision Movement channel and in our programs and courses are designed to build your foundation for pain-free movement. And your foundation is built up of 4 pillars: tissue quality, alignment, muscle activation, and active range of motion. I'm not going to dive into those now. We've talked about those in previous videos and a lot of other places here on YouTube and in our programs. What we're talking about is the performance pyramid. At the bottom of the performance pyramid, we've got endurance. Then as you move up, you go to strength. And then at the top of the performance pyramid, you have speed, agility, power, and quickness. Those characteristics that are really shown and displayed by athletes at the highest levels in their sport. If you're not an athlete, working up to the top of the performance pyramid is still good because you're going to build resilience in the tissue and in your body to handle whatever it is that life throws your way. So you'll notice the speed and the strength and the power elements as we go through the 4 exercises here. For the exercises, what I recommend is you spend 2 to 3 weeks on each exercise because they're going to progress you up, and you do each exercise twice a week. And I'll break down exact reps and sets and how to progress those at the end of this video. We're starting with an exercise called switches. For this exercise, stagger your feet, ensure your pelvis is square, and make sure you're in good posture, good alignment. For any sport, good posture and good alignment is key for efficiency and optimal power and performance. From here, go up onto the balls of your feet, hands up. It's back from my combat fighting training days. Hands up, and you're switching your foot position as quickly as possible. Stick it for a moment, and then go. Breathing, and switching and sticking. What this exercise is training is that speed of the hip flexors and the glutes and the hips to switch position as if you're running. You're switching your legs and you're alternating your legs position. But we're not going to running yet because this, if you're dealing with pain in your psoas or your hip flexors, this exercise takes away a lot of the impact from running and pounding on the pavement. And it's a fairly low impact exercise, but still allows you to build that speed. And by training the stick in between, you're building that lumbopelvic stability, the core stability at the same time. So it's a great exercise to start your back to sport or your building resilience training to prevent these psoas and hip flexor injuries in the future. The second exercise we're going to do is the alternating leg raise. And this is an exercise that you've probably done before in some form, but here we've got a very specific focus to train the psoas and the hip flexors for speed while maintaining lumbopelvic stability. Now, if you find that when you do this exercise, your hip clunks or it snaps, we've got another video on that topic that we're going to link up here and down in the description below. You'll want to do those exercises and minimize or eliminate the snapping and clunking first before coming to this exercise. For the alternating leg raise, very simple, lie down on the floor. And to start off, you want to maintain a neutral lumbar spine. So you should be able to fit your hand underneath your low back on the ground. So neutral spine or even a slight anterior pelvic tilt, and you maintain that position throughout. Don't let the rib cage flare out, and get those shoulder blades back to facilitate good open shoulder posture. From here, you can start off with legs bent, knees bent, and you're just going kind of like running fast for speed, not banging your foot on the ground, and then you're resting. For the sets, we're going to be doing 10-second sets approximately, but we'll talk about all that at the end of this video. Again, if you've got the snapping or clunking when you try that, go to that other video first. The key cue when doing this exercise and the next little variation of this exercise is to maintain even left-right pressure underneath your pelvis. So underneath on the sit bones, the ischial tuberosities, basically high up under your butt, you maintain even left-right pressure throughout. So if you have to go a little slower to maintain that pressure, then do so. And you can feel what that feels like. So you're not rocking side to side on the pelvis. You're keeping that pressure even, left, right. And then you can build the speed as you're breathing and maintaining the neutral, natural lumbar curve. How to progress that once you're good with the bent knee version is straighten out the legs. You straighten out the legs, point the toes, and it's more like a scissor type movement. You'll go a little slower because you're lifting heavier weights now. The key is the same, to maintain that even left-right pressure underneath the pelvis, and that helps you to build that lumbopelvic stability that you need to make sure your low back doesn't get trashed when you're doing exercise like this or when you're running, while at the same time training the speed of the hip flexors to build that resilience in those muscles and to build that performance as well. Next up, we've got the mountain climber, but we're doing this similar to how we perform the switches, which is one at a time, switch and then stick. Again, this is training the two functions of the hip flexors, the iliacus function and the psoas function, in hip flexion and lumbopelvic stability. Start off in the push-up position. Make sure you're solid on your hands, shoulder blades, your scapular muscles are engaged, and you've got good posture. Again, you've got that slight anterior pelvic tilt. You're not sagging, you're straight, and you're solid. From here, start with one foot up and make sure you're in good alignment again. And all you're doing is rapidly switching and sticking. Back leg, get it fully straight, and see if you can land simultaneously. So you can go by the sound, lifting and landing at the same time. For this, make sure again your pelvis remains stable and don't lift your butt up too high in the air. So it's not like a donkey kick type exercise where you're jumping up, because that becomes more of a push, using your glutes, using your quads to push your legs and your lower body off the ground, as opposed to more of a pulling where you're pulling your leg up using the hip flexors. Landing nice and light, landing both feet at the same time, and moving that as quickly as possible. The last exercise is another simple exercise where we don't require any equipment that we can do to train the elements that we're talking about today, but the key is to perform it using the proper intention and following the proper cues. For this exercise, it's the high knee run. We want to do the same thing, kind of like switches, where we're landing light, but we want to bring the knees up high and run basically as quickly as possible, maintaining good posture and good alignment. This is a great exercise to use as a warm-up for any sport where you're going to run because it trains and focuses on the hip flexors, as opposed to if you're just running, you're getting a lot of glutes, you're getting a lot of quads, more of the push muscles for running. But by training this, we focus on the hip flexors, the speed of those muscles, and that way we can optimize our speed. And if we're suffering or coming back from psoas or hip flexor pain, we are making sure that we're warming up the muscle that got injured before we use it. Now let's talk programming. For these exercises, do them for 2 to 3 weeks each, so you do one at a time, and you do them twice a week. Start off at 4 to 5 sets, and you're going to add 1 or 2 sets every week, building up to 10 sets. For the sets, do them anywhere from 10 to 12 seconds, and rest 1 minute in between sets. These specifications are required when we're training speed and power. We want sets to train the energy system associated with speed and power, which is the ATP phosphocreatine system, or the anaerobic alactic energy system. So we've got to keep our sets relatively short. We don't want to get into that muscle burning feeling, which is indicative of lactic acid or the anaerobic lactic or glycolytic energy systems. So that's a little bit of the physiology behind the programming. The 1 minute rest is good because that gives you sufficient rest to recover, because these exercises are relatively light. We're not lifting heavy loads, and we're focused on the speed aspect of performance. So that's what you've got to do if you're an athlete or if you want to build resilience. What do you think of that video? Let me know by leaving a comment or a like. And here are the other videos that I talked about earlier with the psoas and getting to the root causes, and with the snapping and clunking hip. And if you're an athlete or if you're somebody who just wants to keep moving freely and without pain so you can do the active things you love, make sure you've got our ROM Coach mobile app, because inside you've got the daily movement tune-up that is basically like brushing your teeth, but for all the joints of your body, and other exercises, programs, and routines to keep you moving freely and without pain.